So this video is going to explore algebra. More specifically, it's going to look at expanding and simplifying expressions, multiplying brackets, and simplifying algebraic fractions. To be able to factorise, we must understand the different terminology used when we break down an algebraic expression. For example, this 5a is considered an term, and within this term you have the variable, which is a, and the coefficient, which is 5. In a similar way then, our 7 in this term is the coefficient and our variable is y. Variable is the unknown part of the algebraic expression. And finally, you will have 2, which in this case is called a constant. There's a golden rule in algebra, and this is called equating like with like. So in order to solve this expression, we must put together terms that are similar. In this case, we have a 5x and a 4x, which both have the same variable, and we have a 6y and a minus 3y, which will also have the same variable of y. Our next step is to put these two terms together. So I rewrite my expression with 5x plus 4x and 6y minus 3y. And in order to group them together, I simply add or subtract the like terms. So when I do that, I'm left with 9x here, and I'm left with plus 3y here. Because as we know, when the signs are different, you take the sign of the bigger number, which in this case is 6, and you take it away, which gives me 3. When we're asked to simplify an expression, we use the like with like rule. For example, to answer part 1 of this question, we would say 5a minus 4b minus 3 minus a plus 5b plus minus 6. And we would equate the similar terms. So we have a 5a, we have a minus a, we have a minus 4b and a plus 5b, and we also in this example have two constants, minus 3 and minus 6. So we rewrite the expression and we simplify it. That leaves me with 5a, and I have a minus a, then I'm left with a minus 4b and a plus 5b, and I'm also left with my minus 3 and my minus 6. So again, my like terms I can put together. So my 5a minus a will give me 4a. I then have a minus 4b and a plus 5b, which will give me b. And I'm left with a minus 6 and a minus 3, which will give me minus 9. And I have now simplified that expression because I no longer have terms that are similar beside each other. We are now simply moving on to multiplying terms. So let's try part 1. I can rewrite this expression as 2ab and put them in separate brackets. And then I can rewrite the next expression 3 by a because it's a squared, and by b by b by b and by b again. I'm now going to take my constants, which is 2 and 3, and I'm going to multiply them by each other, which will give me 6. And the rule when you have indices or powers and you're multiplying is that you add the powers. So in this case, we count up how many a's we have. We have 1, 2, and 3. So it's a to the power of 3. And we do the exact same thing with the b's. We say it's b to the power of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if we were to take the original equation, we have an a to the power of 1 plus a to the power of 2, which will give me a to the power of 3. And the exact same for the b's, we have b to the power of 1 plus 4, which again will give me b to the power of 5. Now to answer part 2. We have a 3x to the power of 3. So that means it's 3x times 3x times 3x. And if we were to expand that even further, we would be left with 3 by 3 by 3 and x by x and by x again. And the same rule applies. We're going to multiply 3 by 3, which will give me 9, and then multiply by 3 again, which will give me 27. And if I count up how many x's I have 1, 2, 3, so it's x to the power of 3. And to answer part 3 of multiplying terms, we have 3a squared b, and that's 2b squared. So we write the bracket out twice. We have 3a squared b and 3a squared b. And if we were to break that down even further, we would take our two constants and put them together, so 3 and 3, and we would leave a squared and a squared and b and b. And now we apply our rule of indices. So 3 by 3 will always give me 9. And if I have 2 and 2, I add them, so it's a to the power of 4. And I've to the power of 1 and to the power of 1, so it's b to the power of 2. Here we have multiplying brackets using the area model. So what you do is you break up into boxes, and in this case we have 2 by 2, and in part 2 you have a 2 by 3. For the part 1, we take everything that's in our first bracket up here and we write it across the top. And we take the two terms that are in our second bracket and we write them down the side. And then we simply follow along and multiply out. Another word for this is called box multiplication. So we say that x by x will always give you x squared, and 5 by x is always 5x. Then we take x by 3 and we say that is 3x, and we go 5 by 3 then is 15. And we take each box and we write it again at the bottom. So we're left with x squared plus 5x plus 3x plus 15. And we just simplify it because that's what we were asked up here, is to simplify. So we're left with x squared plus 8x plus 15. Try part 2 yourselves using the area model. For this next part, we are asked to do two things. We are asked to expand and we are asked to simplify. So first we must expand. I'm going to take part 1. To expand brackets, I multiply the outside number by everything on the inside. And the same again here. So 6 by x is 6x, 6 by 1 is always 6, plus 2 by x is 2x, and 2 by 2 is 4. And I do my exact same rule as I do when I'm grouping. These are similar, and I have two constants, 6 and 4. And when I simplify them, I am left with 6 and 2 is 8 and x, and 6 and 4 is 10. And I have now simplified that expression. Now to try a more difficult one, we're going to go for part 2. In this one, we're asked to multiply 5 by 3a squared plus 4a plus 5, and I close my bracket, minus a squared plus 3a minus 2. So to multiply out the first brackets here, 5 by 3 will always give me 15, followed by a squared. 5 by 4 is always 20, and I have a, and I have 5 by 5, which is 25. And now I'm multiplying the second half of my brackets, this time by a minus. So a minus by a plus will give me minus a squared, plus by a minus gives me a minus 3a, but a minus by a minus gives me a plus, and I'm left with 2. So I simplify. I take my 15a and my minus a squared, and I'm left with 14a squared. I take my 20a and my minus 3a, which gives me a plus 17a. And then I'm left with my 25 and my plus 2, which will give me plus 27. And I have expanded my expression here, and I have simplified it down here. In this question, we are asked to remove the brackets, number 1, and then simplify. So in other words, we have 2 parts to this question. So for part 1, I have an x and a 2, and I have an x minus a 3. Now for part 1 of this, I am going to remove the brackets, and to do that I must multiply. So I rewrite it. I say x times x minus 3 plus 2 times x minus 3. And how I did that was I took my 2 terms here and I multiplied them by the bracket. When I do that, I get x squared minus 3x plus 2x minus 6. So now I've removed the brackets. I am now on to step 2 of my question, which asks me to simplify. And to simplify this expression, we simply go x squared, and a plus and a minus will give me a minus x minus 6. And I have now answered the question. You try do question 2, part 3 and part 4. Okay, so to go about solving this algebraic fraction, we need to first look at the denominators of 5 and 2 and see, well, what is the lowest common multiple of them? Well, the lowest common multiple of 5 and 2, straight away we can tell, is 10. So now we take these 2 separate fractions and make them into one big fraction. So our denominator is 10. Well, we say, well, how many times does 5 go into 10? Well, it goes into 10 twice. So we're multiplying 2 by everything in the bracket above 5. 4x plus 3. Okay, now we say, well, how many times does 2 go into 10? Well, it goes in 5 times. So plus 5 times everything that is in the bracket above 2, which is 3x minus 1. Okay, and just like before in the video, we expanded the brackets, we're doing the exact same here. So we're going to expand the brackets. We're going to say, well, 2 times 4x, and then 2 times 3, 5 times 3x, and 5 times minus 1. So here we have the expanded version, and I put that all over 10 because remember I need to keep it as a fraction. And now all you do is you simplify the top. So we look at it and we say, well, these are the same, and this is the same, and this is the same, and this is the same. So when like terms are the same, we can add and subtract them. So we do that over here. So we know that 15x plus 8x is going to give me 23x. And then I have plus 6 minus 5 is going to give me plus 1. And that's going to be all over 10. And this is your final answer. It is expressed as a single fraction. So you go ahead now and see if you can solve part 2 following the exact same